All right, hey folks, it's Faz here from Faz Lifts. Today I want to talk about how to know you're progressing. All right, so if you made it onto my channel, thank you. And please do leave your own questions and comments down below. The best questions I will turn into videos. All right, so now I see this problem quite a lot. I see people plateauing for months, years sometimes. And at my age, I've seen people plateau for decades. And I just want to grab these people and go, what are you doing? Like, where are you actually checking yourself to see whether you're making progress or not? Like, you couldn't get away with that in business. You couldn't get away with that in any other endeavor in life, just meandering along and not doing anything and not actually progressing. So today I want to discuss how you can set up for yourself a robust series of objective markers to actually know that you're progressing or not. And so you're not BSing yourself. All right. So I've got quite a few notes here. So let's begin. Firstly, I want to tell you guys the difference between subjective and objective measures. So this is something that I see quite a lot with local PTs around here where I live. And it's very easy for a PT to fool the client into believing that they're progressing. So there are various means that these PTs use, like placebo is one of them. I feel like it's working. Do you feel like it's working? Do you think it's working? Yeah, and pretty much by the end of that, the client is convinced that it's working. Subjective bias. So they have a bias towards it. I like this. Great. So if all of a sudden, your client likes to work on the leg press rather than do squats, and you go, yeah, leg press is better for you. They go, great, I like doing this. Beginner gains. Another way is just making lots of beginner gains. Beginners can progress doing pretty much anything. If they're new to this, that's not a guarantee of a good method. Camaraderie. This is another way of just G'ing your client along to say, yeah, you know what? I'm making progress. Sure, you're my mate. Confirmation bias. Telling the client what they want to know rather than what they need to know. See, I knew calories didn't matter. And flirtation. Also, a heavy dose of flirtation happens far too often, and PTs are terrible for this. Just flirt with their clients for months and years on time, so the client doesn't want to drop them because at the end of it, they feel like there's some kind of connection there. It's really weird. I see it a lot. I don't like it. A lot of PTs will do this on purpose. Some of them will do this by accident, but we all need to be able to have the ability to shit check ourselves. So that is, have an objective measure to see whether we're improving or not. A lot of what I've listed here, these are all just subjective things which are very much open to interpretation. And there are ways that PTs use to fool the clients into believing that they're actually progressing when they're not. So let's have a look at some objective measures of muscle gain. Firstly, strength increases. All right. Setting yourself some smart targets. Like if you're benching, I don't know, 2 plates for 10, set yourself the goal of benching 2 plates and a quarter for 10 within, say, 3 to 6 months. So you have a reasonable goal, which is measurable. It has a time stamp to it as well, so you know whether you're progressing towards that or not. Secondly, use measurements, actual physical body measurements. Thirdly, take your body weight. Generally try and take your body weight at least 3 times per week. 3 to 7 times is fine, and then take your average. Only work on the average. And finally, I like block periodization. One of the reasons is with clients, I can do a general end of block evaluation. So at the end of the block, I can say, okay, what have we accomplished? There's nothing massively special about block periodization, but what it does allow me to do is allows me to have a concrete point where I can stop and go, okay, let's just breathe for a second. Did we actually move towards our goal in the last 4 to 5 weeks? Yes or no? And if yes, great. How can we show we did? And if no, what can we learn from this? That's why my clients are always moving forward, because we evaluate at regular intervals. And if it's great, good. If it's not, then we own up to it and we improve. It's important for both me and my clients to understand how progress is happening, if it's happening, and also understand if it's not happening, what we can do about it. So it's important to face the truth in these matters. Otherwise, you can waste weeks, and weeks turn into months, months turn into years. And I keep saying that, but years turn into decades. So looking at strength increases a little bit further. Firstly, beginners, ranked beginners, should see progress, actual concrete strength progress from session to session. If you do a lift on a Monday, you should be stronger by Friday. Okay, or certainly Monday to Monday. You should be stronger session to session. Intermediates should see progress from block to block. So every 4 to 5 weeks, you should be able to see some measurable progress. If you're at the stage where you can only see progress every 4 to 5 weeks, odds you're intermediate. If you're still able to add something to the bar every week, you're still a beginner in the grand scheme of things, no matter how you might feel about your own progress. The advanced guys will generally only progress for a few peaks during the course of the year. There'll be a big build up and then they'll peak. Most people that I work with are in the beginner to intermediate category, even if they think they're advanced. Beginner to intermediate category based on those definitions. Those are some very good definitions, and they provide a clear delineation between who's beginner, who's intermediate, and who's advanced for the individual based on where they're at. Now, next is, what is good strength progress? So for beginners, we're looking at week to week. So what is good strength progress? Like, am I saying to you guys, add 5 kilos to the bar every week, add 10 kilos to the bar every week? No, I'm not. And I have to clarify this point, and I feel like I almost have to do it every time I ask people to aggressively pursue strength, because as soon as I say that, the ill-informed will just run to the gym, throw on an extra 20 kilos and go, yeah, boss man wants me to progress. I'm like, no, that is not what we're doing. We are literally adding some reasonable sets, some reasonable reps per week, per session. So this is a sample progression. You guys can read it yourself, but week 1 to week 2 to week 3, small amounts of either weight or sets and reps. Because you know what happens? This is what happens when people run in and just slam on 20 kilos. Their form goes to crap. So I've seen countless examples of people doing, say, okay, this week I did great. I did my squats, you know, I did a plate aside, whatever. Okay, great. Next week I'm going to go heavy. So they go up to 2 plates and their depth is compromised. They can't go all the way down. It's like, well, what are you doing? Like, honestly, what are you actually doing? Like, you've gone from regular squats to partial squats, and in your brain, that's actually progress. How? Progress is keeping the form the same, but adding a small amount of weight or reps. It boggles the mind that people will think that's progress. In no other walk of life would that be considered progress whatsoever. So yes, your form has to remain consistent while you're getting stronger. That is strength progression. So in terms of intermediates, this is a sample strength progression, which was actually taken from one of my previous clients. Block 1, she ended with 100 kilos for 12 on the squat. Block 2, after 5 weeks, ended with 105 for 12. And in block 3, she ended with 107.5 for 12. Excellent progression for an intermediate. So a lady of her size, this is almost double body weight squats for sets of 12. It's a phenomenal amount of weight. So progression for the intermediate should be measured at the end of every block. For the advanced, we don't really need to do a diagram or an explanation for that. Basically, for the advanced, it'll be measured by competition to competition or photo shoot to photo shoot every year. At the advanced stage, shit checking for the advanced clientele becomes far less necessary, because they're at the stage where they already know what works. If they didn't, they wouldn't be advanced. That's another way you can tell by somebody's actually advanced. Next way, if we move away from strength progression, is measurements. Take them every single week. Take a select number of measurements throughout the body. Just be consistent. It doesn't matter. You don't have to use these 9, but just do that and take your measurements every week. Keep it consistent, and it'll give you, you don't need to compare week to week and be depressed or be happy. It'll just give you an overall picture of months and months of data. That's all you want. One data point per week means nothing really. You can be carrying water 1 week or whatever, so that's irrelevant. It's more about finding a trend over time, like what's happening. If over time your stomach's going down and your arms are going up, it's probably a good sign, all right? But you have to take the data to be able to see the trend. Next thing is body weight increases. So if we look at bulking, these are my general guidelines. Conservatively, I go for about 1% per month. Aggressively, which would probably be for a beginner, 2% per month is fine. Dreamer bulks at 4%, don't do that, okay? So that would be as much as, I don't know, £2 per week. That is a bad idea, so don't do that. But in general, 1% per month. For a guy who weighs, say, 220 pounds, right? You're looking at about, 2.2 pounds per month. That's not a lot of weight. But if you do that, you'll almost guarantee that the majority is going to be muscle if you're hitting the rest of your numbers in the gym and you're doing everything else that I say that you should be doing. And photos. Now, again, this is similar to measurements. You're not going to see a great deal from week to week, but what you do want to do is build up a picture of where you are from week to week, month to month, and then you'll build up a trend. And in the end, you can put them all together and see some massive improvements. What I do want to say, though, is choose consistent lighting. Generally, my guys are okay, but there have been occasions in the past where I've had clients come to me with pictures in one room in the daytime for one, and then in a different room at nighttime for another. And it's just impossible to tell. And if you're doing that every week, then again, you're not going to have a consistent data point over the weeks. It becomes impossible to actually use that as a measure of success or evaluation. So photos, keep doing them week to week, be consistent. The next thing is, this is something that I feel is really important, is the end of block evaluation. I believe there should be some sort of evaluation at the end of every block. Like, I need to know that you're progressing, or if you're not. I need to know that, objectively speaking. I don't mind staring the truth in the face if you've not progressed, because then it's up to us to say, okay, well, you know what? The last 4 to 5 weeks hasn't been great, but let's evaluate and see why. So the next 4 to 5 weeks can be good, rather than this system where people stick their head in the sands and go, well, let's just excuse it away. No, let's look it dead in the eye and try and figure out what the hell went wrong, if it went wrong. And you know what? If it went right, great. Let's carry on doing what we're doing. Let's celebrate our success and move on. But I don't like this whole age of 2021 where like no one can fail. Like, I'm sorry, failure is part of it. And if sometimes the block doesn't go well, then you evaluate it and you make sure you get better. It's unrealistic to just say, well, every block is going to be great. Life's going to be full of positivity. Occasionally it's not, but that's when you learn. Now, usually this is quite predictable, though. Like, you can tell when a block's not gone particularly well. Like, I had a client just now, one part of her block didn't go particularly well, the cardiovascular part, because she was nursing an injury, and we didn't focus that much on the cardiovascular stuff. We focused more on strength. Her strength stuff went through the roof. Great. So it was all very explainable. So you have to have an explanation. It is the most worrying thing when your coach, one, doesn't do an evaluation, but two, if they do an evaluation and the block doesn't go very well, they've got their head in their hands going, I don't know why. That is very worrying. You should be able to explain what happened and how with something which is reasonable and makes sense. But end of block evaluations are crucial. It's a tool that I use with my clients because I need to know whether they're progressing or not. It is not just a case of, yeah, let's just high five each other until the cows come home so that we can feel good about life. So some final thoughts. Now, objective measures of success are really important for me. The progress, I feel the progress needs to be real and not imagined. Like, I do this full time, guys. You know, this is, my clients are my job. I don't want to be living a lie, you know, and I see so many PTs doing that. There's so many PTs where their clients aren't progressing at all. Like, the lighting, it looks different when they're taking pictures. The strength is all just like cheated weights. The body ends up looking not very different, or they've been on a bulk and they just look fatter. They've been on a cut and they just look like they've lost muscle. Strength goes to crap because the programming is terrible, so they end up cheating the weight up. So the beginning of a cycle, like, yeah, great, the form is fantastic. At the end of a cycle, they're using a bit of body English, and then the coach is justifying it as part and parcel of getting stronger. It's just nonsense. The amount of times I see that, it's just people lying to each other. It's a coach and a client lying to each other, and I hate that. And if that's what if that's the relationship you got with your coach, you need to find yourself a new one, because then it's not a coach-client relationship. It's just two people lying to each other to make themselves feel better about their situations. And that's not my goal in life. My goal in life is to get people results, concrete, explainable results. So hopefully, guys, I've impressed upon you the need for objective markers of progression. You need to know objectively whether you've made progress or not, so that you can evaluate what works and what doesn't. And slowly over time, you'll build up a picture of what works for you and what doesn't. Also, if stuff goes wrong, don't hush it under the carpet. Figure it out. That's the point. Like, I can't tell you the amount of plateaus I've had in my life where I could have just said, well, that's it, you know, let's just glaze over this. But no, I figured them out, and that's how I've gotten better. You've got to be able to figure things out to get better. But to get better, you've got to objectively look at things. You can't leave it to chance. Like at the beginning of my slide, I looked at all these ways that people leave it to chance, like subjective ways, like placebo and flirtation and stuff like that. If that's what your coach does, drop them. Okay, get with somebody who actually uses objective measures of progression and doesn't just blow smoke up your ass just so that you carry on paying them. That's not what it's there for. So I don't want that. Okay, I want my career in this industry to actually mean something, and clients to objectively know they're progressing week in, week out, month in, month out, if that's what it takes. All right, folks, I'm going to call it there. Hopefully that resonated with you and it was useful and has given you some practical tips of what you can do to keep yourself on track. Right, folks, I'm going to ask you guys, if you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button, like, certainly, share this around. I'm trying to get my subscriber base to 1,000. So any support in that area would be amazing. Thank you, guys. Take it easy.